Hey guys, welcome into a this or that video where I take two concepts within domestic discipline, kind of compare them to each other, talk through which each one means, and ultimately decide which I would choose to have be part of my own relationship if it were up to me. I also invite you in the comments to do the same. Let me know which one you would pick and why. Also, like this video if you like these videos, and subscribe if you're not already. And if you want to help support the channel to help us continue to do what we do here, link to our Patreon is down below. So in this week's This or That, I want to talk through communication styles of the head of household. As a taken in hand, would I rather have a head of household that is strict but gentle in his delivery, or strict and firm? This is something that I think that every couple is going to have to work through, because communication styles is something that doesn't always align. Sometimes what the taken in hand needs or expects from the head of household isn't necessarily what comes naturally to him. And every head of household has to set the pace of their relationship, set the tone of their relationship, and decide how they are going to communicate to their taken in hand, because their communication style is part of their leadership. It is part of how they are running their household. And so they ultimately do get to decide how they are communicating. However, they also want to make sure that how they are communicating resonates with their taken in hand and is effective. And so this is something that every couple that I have ever known has to kind of work through and come to kind of a mutual understanding and maybe even a bit of a compromise on. But as a taken in hand, if it was completely up to me, if I had the choice of a head of household that is, strict but pretty gentle in his delivery versus strict but firm, I would absolutely choose strict but firm. And there's a few reasons for this, because Coda does tend to communicate very gently, or he used to. He had a very gentle approach to his leadership for a long time, and that wasn't necessarily the most effective way to establish authority for me. And we had to talk through that. We had to work through that. And that's because when he spoke very gently to me, it very much communicated that he was unsure of his authority, that he was unsure of himself. It didn't really communicate authority and confidence in the same way that being firm does. Now, of course, there is room for more casual conversation. He's not stoic all the time, and I wouldn't want him to be. But when it comes to communicating standards, when it comes to communicating rules, and especially when it comes to disciplinary actions, whether that is verbal correction or the lecture before a spanking, or just kind of calling me out and telling me what needs to happen and kind of setting the tone for the day, I do need a more firm delivery. And over time, Coda has seen success with that. He's also kind of found his voice as a head of household, and that has taken just time and experience. And he has found that he actually has a more comfortable approach to his leadership with a more firm delivery as well. It wasn't something that came naturally. It wasn't something that was a default setting. It's something that he had to learn to be comfortable with. But once he became comfortable with that, that has become his preferred style of communication, and it's very effective. Now, firm does not mean harsh. I think that there is a misunderstanding sometimes that firm has to be harsh, and it is not harsh, but it is confident, it is direct, and it doesn't ask questions, right? I think that too many times when you have a head of household that tends to be more gentle, they're looking for almost a collaborative type of communication where they want the taken in hand to kind of come alongside them. They want the taken in hand to kind of affirm what they're saying, where a firm approach is just very directive and very decisive without necessarily needing the taken in hand to have any type of input or affirmation of that decision or authority. But it doesn't mean that it has to be harsh. There is a time and place for harsh, right? If a taken in hand needs to be brought into the right mindset in order to accept discipline, sometimes that can require a harsher tone or harsher words. But just being direct and firm in your communication doesn't necessarily have to be harsh. So that firm communication is really more about being decisive, being confident, and leading with authority. And that is why I would choose a more firm approach for the communication style of the head of household. But of course, that is if it was up to me. And again, I think that a good head of household is going to have these conversations with their taken in hand because they want to know what's going to resonate and be effective for them, because ultimately you want to set your taken in hand up for success. You want to make things easier on her. You want to make it to where she can follow your authority, follow your lead, and do that well. And communication style and getting kind of on the same page with what is needed from communication, that is one really easy way to start to kind of come together and create success in your relationship. All right, guys, let me know which one you would pick down below, and we will talk to you next time.